No fear have ye of grim-grinning ghosts, says you. Properly warned ye be, says I. Who knows when an evil curse will strike the foolish mortals, exploring the boundless realms of the supernatural. Take your loved ones by the hand, please, and kindly watch your step. You may not survive to pass this way again. When Disneyland first opened, guests were invited to explore 4 iconic realms.
Frontierland, tall tales and true from the legendary past. Tomorrowland, promise of things to come. Adventureland, the wonder world of nature's own realm. Fantasyland, the happiest kingdom of them all.
Despite the popularity of the happiest place on Earth, it was noticeably lacking in 2 areas: pirates and ghosts. But that would all change shortly after a 5th realm appeared in 1966. New Orleans Square would be modeled after the French Quarter and would include food, music, and the Blue Bayou Lagoon. Anyone brave enough to venture through the Louisiana swamp would discover elevated wooden shacks and houseboats under a shroud of perpetual night. As they drift past fireflies and alligators, the travelers are greeted by Jolly Roger, a social skeleton who gives them one final warning before the boat takes a quick drop down a waterfall into Dead Man's Grotto. Pirates of the Caribbean was immensely popular and helped to lure several mortals to New Orleans Square. But Imagineers weren't done yet, because 2 years later, they'd open a retirement home for restless spirits full of squeaky doors and squeaky floors. A tour through the Haunted Mansion would include a trip through a ghostly gallery, followed by a supernatural seance and 999 happy haunts assembling for a swinging wake. Oh, but there's a matter I forgot to mention. Beware of hitchhiking ghosts. These problematic poltergeists will haunt you until you return to our ghostly retreat. Just ask paranormal investigator Benjamin Mathias. He learned the hard way after a certain seafaring specter selected Ben to fill our quota. This grim-grinning ghost has gone by many names, including the Skipper, the Harpooner, but most of our residents call him the Mariner. When construction began on our second ghostly retreat in Lake Buena Vista, it was part of a larger enterprise known as the Florida Project. This haunted mansion was quite different from the original, and the architecture was inspired by the stately old manors you might discover in New York's lower Hudson River Valley, the ancestral home of Sleepy Hollow and the Headless Horseman. However, much of the interior would remain similar to the Californian counterparts, including the Grand Hall, the Seance Circle, and the Portrait Corridor, filled with paintings of some of our guests as they appeared in their corruptible, mortal state. Our most popular portraits include a group of rogues known as the Sinister 11, a cruel cabal of cutthroats and ne'er-do-wells like the Arsonist and Jack the Ripper. The Mariner is yet another member of this group, and would appear in both versions of the Haunted Mansion. In his portrait, the spooky sailor stands in front of a shipwreck covered in seaweed and starfish and holding a harpoon. The image is both frightening and iconic, but it wasn't the first. Originally, Imagineer Marc Davis illustrated a spirit known as the Phantom, wearing a similar cap and slicker. While his accessories would change in the final painting, the inspiration is clear. There are rumors that Davis would revisit the concept in the early 1970s. Some of you may be shocked to learn that the Pirates of the Caribbean was not originally meant to be part of the Magic Kingdom. They did, however, toy around with another idea for Bay Lake on a small, deserted island not far from the park. Treasure Island was going to be an exotic experience including wildlife, waterfalls, a pirate fort flying the Jolly Roger, and several important locales from the Disney film. There are even tales of a life-sized recreation of Captain Flint's pirate ship. The Treasure Island Shipwreck might have been a walkthrough attraction where guests would have encountered a somewhat familiar phantom. Months before the opening of Magic Kingdom, Disney Imagineers decided that the Pirates of the Caribbean should be built in Florida. Treasure Island wouldn't last long, and while the experience would include the remains of a ship, the walkthrough experience was never built. Eventually, it would lose the pirate theme and would be reincarnated as Discovery Island, an oasis full of gorgeous plant life and exotic birds. 40 years after the Haunted Mansion opened in Liberty Square, we learned something new about the Mariner. After our Crypt queue went through an extensive expansion, several of our residents were memorialized in more extravagant ways. Wandering mortals may discover mausoleums for Ravencroft the Organist, the poetess Prudence Pock, and an aquatic apparition known as the Mariner. His creepy crypt beckons those nearby. You'll hear the seamen sneezing, splashing water, and singing a haunting sea shanty. Upon further inspection, you'll discover the Mariner's name is Captain Culpepper Clyne, a hardy sailor that met an unexpected end.
Here floats Captain Culpepper Clyne, allergic to dirt, so he's pickled in brine. He braved the sea and all her wrath, but drowned on land while taking a bath.
Several guests have been polarized by the details of Culpepper's demise. The Mariner's portrait in the mansion left many foolish mortals under the impression that the poltergeist perished at sea, drowning after his ship was wrecked. The words on the captain's crypt seem to suggest an alternative explanation. Culpepper Clyne did in fact drown, but not at sea. Instead, it turns out the Mariner sunk into the water of his own bathtub. It harkens back to an early concept for the Haunted Mansion seen in an illustration by Ken Anderson. Now that you've experienced the story of the Mariner, I'm curious about your thoughts. Do you subscribe to the idea that Culpepper Clyne drowned in a bathtub? Or do you prefer the version where the captain went down with his ship? Make sure to let us know in the comments section below. And why not take a moment to watch one of these other films highlighting the residents of the Haunted Mansion?